Hiya guys, Nigel here with you, back with part 21 now of the Big Bad Buff build for beginners. And as you know, in part 20 we got our wings painted and everything, and we're all looking dandy. We haven't done anything on the tops yet, obviously, because we'll do that once it's built. But yeah, looking all lovely, and really pleased with how it's come out. So basically what you're seeing on camera is different than we've actually got in real life. What you can see is a lot more pronounced. You know, you can really see the green patches in here. You can see the streaks. In real life you can barely see them. It's just an effect to take away the just having it, you know, one lump of black plastic. So the wings are done now, so they can go to one side for now. I've put the Halfords black primer on the tail planes and on the fin. Okay, so you can see here that's all done. And if you remember, we thinned out these trailing edges, and you can see now they're painted how much better they look when they're thinned out rather than just having these great huge lumps of plastic on there. So really big tip to take on that one, guys. So they're all done now. I've marked these TNTs, got the best sides up. Obviously there is no difference because these are the same parts. And then what happens is they go together like that. But what I've done is added the missing vortex generators from one side. So that's done. Oh, and on the fin, get in there with a nice little file or something and square up that air intake on there, and make sure you spray inside black so that it becomes kind of invisible. I don't know where that came from. So where are my fingers? I don't know. There must be a puddle around here or something. So anyway, so now we're ready to go on the fuselage, and we're going to have a look at removing some seams. So now we need to introduce our fuselage back into the frame, and here we go. It's been untouched pretty much. I did actually start doing a little work on the nose here, and then thought, hang on a minute, what are you doing? You're supposed to be filming all this. So I have basically just left it as it is. I just did a little bit of sanding on there, a little bit of sanding under here, and I've gone in with some Mr. Surfacer just to because we've got a little bit of a step under here because I wanted to get the top right. If you remember, I did this with the step, rubbing your finger across it, so this should come out really easy. So what I'll do is I'll switch the camera off now, get the bench cleared and everything, get all these rubber bands off and everything. In fact, no I won't. We'll film doing the rubber bands because I'll show you some tricks on how to make sure you don't damage your model. Okay, so got the bench all cleared now. We just got the fuselage here. So getting these rubber bands off, you need to be really careful, because what you can do, you can pull them forward and they'll flick down into there and they'll snap those control columns off, they'll rip your pilots out, whatever. So you've got to be really careful. So the thing to do is just roll the rubber band. I mean, if you've got loads, you can always just cut them and let them come off. But you could, what you do is put your finger in there like that, push it in hard, okay? And then when you roll the rubber band off, roll the rubber band up onto your finger and away, like so. Okay, it saves it going down in there. Same on the back end. Now on the back end we need to be careful of the guns, we don't break them off, and we also got to be careful that it doesn't fly down in there and snap our gunner's head off. Now this blue rubber band here is rubbish, so I'm just going to cut that off. In fact, I'm amazed it stayed on there that long. They normally just ping off because they're... Oh, and I've cut that one as well. Look. But basically what I'm going to do here is roll this back. Be careful not to roll it over the rear gunner's area. Come on, get up over there. Right. Okay, so if I keep on going now, as soon as I get to that rear gunner's area, it'll just fly down in there and it will cause damage. So I don't want to put my finger in there because I'll break the gunner's head off. So we could put like a cotton bud or a thick toothpick or something like that. What I'm going to do is use a rule, and I'm just going to slide the rubber band over the rule like so, like that. And there we go, it's off. No damage done at all. So if you haven't got a rule, you could use a paintbrush. You know, just hold a paintbrush there or something, roll it over that. You just don't want to make, you want to make sure that it doesn't go down into there. So we've got another one to do now, but I think by the time we get to there it's going to be so loose it won't matter. But let's just see. Yeah, okay, it's still going to be fairly tight, so we can take a paintbrush, hold the paintbrush there in place, get it underneath the rubber band like so, and then just hold it there, roll the rubber band back, and then hold the paintbrush. Job done. Okay, so another little tip for you guys out there. It just saves you breaking your model and wrecking it and everything. And the other thing we have to consider ourselves with, or concern ourselves with here, is not untying rubber bands, but we have to concern ourselves with basically dust. Now when you're doing lots of sanding and filling and sanding and filling, the dust will get down into these areas, the cockpit and the tail gunner. Now with this model it's not so much of an issue because we've got these massive open wheel bays where we can blow dust out, and you know, this is all open down in here, and the back of the cockpit is all open, so it's not all sealed in. Now with some models that have, you know, have a lot of interior detail, say, then you need to be a little bit careful that you make sure you get all the dust out before you put your clear parts in, because the last thing you want to do is come to finish your model when you take the masking off your clear parts full of dust inside, and then what people do then is just paint them black. So what we're going to do now is take this Tamiya tape off. Okay, and I can put this tape down on the bench because we can always use it again. You know, you could say, well, you're tight. Yep, you could say I'm tight, but you could also say that, you know, I'm not throwing it in landfill. Reusing it, it's always a good thing. So there we go. Let me go on and get the rest of this tape off. Oh, there's only 2 more pieces. No point going off camera for that. So we've now got to start looking at our fuselage. Now, one thing we do not want to do is be working on it like this, down on its undercarriage and sanding away. We want to make sure we hold it, we support it on something. I've actually made a stand for my HPH 148th Fortress, so I may see if I can use that. But basically, with this seam here, you can see we've got all the glue oozed out, and that is basically our filler. So what we can do is come straight in with the sanders, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to come in with a Stanley knife blade. Now, if you're not familiar, I don't know if in the US if they call them Stanley knife blades, but basically you just want a long, hard, straight blade. And what I'm going to do is just scrape along the joint and just remove the excess glue that's sitting out on the top, just like so. And I can cut a bit there. Look. Now these square lines here, the panel lines here we will replace, but these square lines here, all they are is the marking out of the walkways to show the engineers where they can and can't walk. So we're not going to worry if they disappear, and as I say, the panel lines we can replace. So we've scraped away the glue there. Okay, and we've got those 2 little lugs there. They're from the little eyelet that was there to hang it from the ceiling, so we'll just cut them away. Under here doesn't matter too much because the fin covers a lot of this. And then be careful not to roll off the end and go and attack your gunner's head. Now we're going to have to do quite a bit of sanding and filling around the back here. If you remember, we had a bit of a mismatch problem, so we'll see how we get on with that. And then down here we do the same underneath. We just scrape these areas off, remove these sprue nibs here, remove these lumps. These are the lumps and bumps that keep the doors lined up. We can shave away that plastic card we put in. I've got a feeling that lump there is supposed to be there, so we'll leave that for now. Just cut them away. Yeah, I also need to look at this. I think they're sprue nibs, and that's the bit that's supposed to be there. In fact, it's all misaligned. We'll probably just remove it all anyway. So it's easier to come along with cutters and just cut it off. And then what we want to do is get a fairly coarse sanding stick. Now I've actually got my new sanding sticks out, believe it or not. So I'm going to use the 150 grit zebra stick, which is quite coarse, and just sand it away. I'm not putting any pressure on, I'm just letting the sander do the work, which is something I know I keep saying. And what you don't want to do is go gouging into the model and making great big deep cuts in it. Just want to sand out that rough area there. Do the same here, do the same here. There we go. Right. So you can see we've got the mismatch underneath because we've got the top really good. So we've also got a bit of a mismatch in these lines here. We can put the fuselage down on its back. We can just sand across here, just level things out. Just get things squared up. And where you've got a lot of mismatch like here, don't keep sanding till it's gone or you'll end up with a trough. What we'll have to do is fill that. So we'll just use Mr. Surfacer on here. We won't use sprue goo and stuff because, as you know, the problem with the sprue goo is it can take a long time to dry. And it also sinks back. So the same there, we're going to sand that and we're going to actually put some filler in there. There we go. Okay, so that's that done. Now this area in here will have to come in with a skinny stick or something. This area here is going to be all sanded out, so just come along and just roughly knock the lumps out of that. I'm going to put some plastic card in there, I think, to fill that gap. And then up here, look, we've got a sprue nib, so I'm just going to sand that away. But you see, I'm using my finger as a guide so I don't remove this little antenna that's moulded on here. And there we go. Up to come back here, I'm just going to take a bit more off of there. But you know, it's not worth being too careful and, you know, trying to be really sensitive about the finish and everything. What you're trying to do initially is just get it all lined up. There we go. Now the top is going to be a lot better because it is basically all lined up. So basically when you come along, I'm not even going to use that stick, it's too coarse. But when we come to sand this, say I'll use say a 400. When I come along here, you will see that it's much smoother, but also it blends in a lot better. Now you have to be careful. I'm going to have to lose those panel lines, I think. These here are windows, so we're going to have to mask those off and spray them. If I was building this as a super accurate model, I would cut all this and add a vac form canopy. So I think what I'll do is I'll mask that area there and see if I can get away with sanding it without losing the detail. What I'll probably do is here, where this refueling port is, I'll probably scribe that. In fact, I might even scribe them as well because they are actually doors. So they're not panel lines as such. I'm not going in ripping into it, because if you start ripping into it, that's when you start making heat and that's when you start affecting the joint. You can see we've got some low areas here. We've got sink marks which we're going to have to get rid of, so we're going to have to fill them. This little area here, we're going to be careful not to put a chamfer on the edge of our wing roots. I'm going to use the coarser sander here just to remove some of that meat from there, and that's going to need filling there. Okay, so moving backwards. You can see how much easier the top is than the bottom. I don't know if I'm catching it in the light there so you can see it, but you can see there, you can see a shiny area here with a dull area around it. That's where it's low and the matte area is high. So you can see that on this side it's higher than that side. So I'm just going to blend in like that. Okay, and all the time being careful not to break your undercarriage, careful where you've got your hand, careful where you're holding it, don't knock it into the bench. This is one of the big problems with kits like this, where you have to fit the undercarriage to start with, and it's a bit of a pain. Well, it's a lot of a pain actually, it's a big pain in the ass. Right. Got my OG material here so I can clean the sanding stick off, and then we can carry on with our sanding. There we go. If you remember, we did this gluing with a cocktail stick, so we've got a really well glued, very, very strong joint. So making sure that the gunner's head is lower than the fuselage, so I can sand that away quite nicely. Okay, so there we go. The other thing, by using these hard sticks rather than sponges, you're keeping the sanding localized within these walkway lines, so you're not actually going all the way down the sides and causing loads of damage and everything. So what I'm going to do with the sanding stick like this, because it's brand new, I know it's dead straight, I'm just going to go along like this and see where we are. And I'm going to mark it with a pencil. Find a pencil. And this will be like my guide, and I'll be able to see where it's high and where it's low. There we go. So now we need to get in here with some filler, Mr. Surfacer, sprue goo, whatever you want to use, and we'll just have to start to fill these low spots. And I think what I will do, I think I will rescribe these panels, so I'm going to just carefully sand that center seam there. There we go. We've only lost a little bit of our panel line, so that's cool. So there we go. I've been working off camera there, haven't I? Idiot. Sorry guys, I've just realised I'll have to do some editing, but I've just realised I'm doing loads of this off camera because I'm sort of bringing it closer to me and I've got the camera in the wrong position, so sorry about that. Now we've got this area here which has previously been attacked with Mr. Surfacer. You've got these little, this little lump here, and we'll be careful not to remove that. So we're going to in fact, those two antennae can go. I'm not going to worry about sanding around them, I'm just going to sand them off. And then if I feel the need, I'll replace them afterwards. Right, so I got my course stick back again. I'm just going to break down this door, because if you remember we stuck this door and I made it proud on purpose so that we could sand it back and blend it in. There we go, that's all done. And you can see here when we've got the Mr. Surfacer, we end up with Mr. Surfacer on the low side, which is cool, and nothing on the other side. So now we can come along with a sponge. We use quite a coarse sponge. This is a 600. And then we can blend that in, and that is kind of ready for primer now. And what we'll do is we'll use the primer as our final guide to see how we're looking. And that needs some more Mr. Surfacer in there, I think. There we go, and then we can come along with our thinner sticks. This is a Matador 400 grit. And get in here and make sure we get the edges of these undercarriage base smoothed out. Okay, and then we can also use this one in between here and just sand that seam there. This stick's seen better days. I think I should replace it. There we go. There we are. So I'm going to get some Mr. Surfacer along this top here, and then we can sand that out and blend it, and then look at doing some scribing and stuff, and we'll just get it looking all tidy and dandy. And we're also going to put some Mr. Surfacer in these sink marks. These are where the pins are inside, where they mould the pin and then you've got the hole moulded in, and because it's a thicker section of plastic, it cools at a slower rate, so it sinks. So that's what happens there. So there we go, and we'll just have a look at this rear end here, see how tidy we can get that. I think that's pretty good, don't you? It's pretty nice. So we'll see how it looks when we get the glazing in, because obviously the glazing needs to blend in all the way around here. So there we go. Happy with how this is turning out. So I'm going to get some Mr. Surfacer on there, and then I'll come back for you. Alright, so here we are a couple of hours later, well probably about 5 hours later, and Mr. Surfacer on here and drying out beautifully. So now I'm using hard sticks, not sponges. If you use sponges, you're likely to end up with just replacing the divots. Now here we've got a panel line going along here, and I want to try and avoid actually sanding that. Now I need to put this on something. I know what I use. This is my mould for the wing tanks. So if I put the fuselage on there, And what I want to try and do is avoid removing that panel line. This, I think this stick's seen better days. This one here's an 800, which is not so worn. One of the biggest problems with Mr. Surfacer, it's quite a soft material initially. It does harden in time, but when you come to sand it, it's quite a soft material, so if you've got a fine stick, it will just clog it straight away. So I always recommend when you're sanding Mr. Surfacer, don't use your brand new sticks, because it may well destroy them. And I've always found that once it gets clogged in there, that's pretty much it. You can see it's clogging in there. So yeah, I tend to avoid using brand new sanding sticks with it. Maybe this Matador stick will do better. It's a 400 and quite worn. And these are those low areas, those divots that we want to sand away. You can see we've still got a low spot in the middle of those, so they're going to need another application. It is better to put this on in thin layers rather than just try and do it all in one, because all it'll do is shrink back. It takes forever to dry, and you'll find you're sanding it and all of a sudden you'll hit a soft spot in the middle and rip it all out and you're back to square one. So it's, once again guys, I'm sorry this video has turned into this segment has turned into a sanding a sanding video. So yeah, we've still got a low spot in there we need to fill. And then running along the middle of here, we've got the little area over the top of the main wing area. Or the main wing root, should I say. I'm trying to keep this block up so that I don't put any weight on the undercarriage. The weight is sort of between the block and the nose. What have we got here? It's got a worn 220. That might do a better job of just ripping that down. There we go, that's taken the top of that off. Now, just going to try and polish that out. Yeah, that needs some more on it as well, so there we go. Let's get this worn 220. I'm not worried about the panel lines going that way, because we're going to replace them anyway. Same as we did on the wings. But I will show you again with the fuselage in case you didn't see the bit with the wings. But I'm conscious this series is going on and on and on. We're on part this is what, part 21 now, so I'm sort of conscious that you might all be getting a bit bored, but I'm getting lots and lots of emails and comments from guys that are saying they're learning stuff, and that's the main thing. That's what it's all about. It's teaching you guys just the little bits and pieces that I've picked up over the years, without having to spend a fortune on the latest, the latest products from whatever manufacturer. Okay, that's sunk down. That needs some more in there. So I think what I'm going to do is get my pencil, start marking this out. So more in there, more in there, more in there, more in there. Okay, so taking my 220, again this is worn out, so this is more like a sort of 400 really. note again, I'm using hard sticks rather than sponges so that I don't get the divots. Again, we can come in with this one here, just sand that away, and we're going to need some more in there. I think this is one of the beauties of the Model Collect kit. It doesn't have all these divots in it, I don't think. But, certainly if you've got the AMT kit, I think that's much better in this area. But then with the AMT kit you have got, if you look at this rear section, this fuselage, and then look at your AMT kits, they're way too skinny. Yeah, we're going to want some more in there. And then this here I'm not really too worried about, because this is going to be covered by the fin. And I don't mean Hannu Mikkola, I mean the tail. Okay, then we've got fresh divot I hadn't noticed there and there, so they won't be covered because they're in the off to the side, so even if the fin does come forward that far, it's still going to be seen on the sides. So we're going to need some more in there, and you can see that I've put some more in the bottom. I'm trying to keep this on camera. There we go, we need some more in there, that's sunk back. Good this, isn't it? I bet you're thinking, why on earth did I take this hobby up? Well, just remember, not all kits are like this. You got to sand it out beautifully, that joint there. Again, in areas like this you must use a hard stick. If you use a sponge in here, what will happen is the sponge will roll over that edge and end up with a big radius on it. So you need to make sure you keep to your hard sticks when you're sanding next to openings. Okay, so we need some more in there, some more in there, and some more in there. Right, now this area in here has got quite a big step in it, as you can see. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm going to come on with a knife and just scrape some of that raised plastic away. Rather than just do it all with sanding and making loads of dust. Now normally you would need to be very careful with the swarf going in here, but I'm not worried about it because there's so many openings I can get in here with an airline and blow it all out afterwards. But you know, a lot of modern kits these days with all the interior detail and stuff, you know, you'll find you get these little shards of plastic or your sanding dust in there and you'll never get it out, and then it'll appear on your windows. It always does. It's the law of sod. There we go, that's blended out lovely. I just want to just do some more sanding there actually. coarser stick just to blend that out. And go in on this edge, and then this edge here. Get them all nice and squared up. I've decided I'm going to remove that, whatever it is. If I have to, I can replace it rather than try and work around it. When you get these moulded on antenna and lumps and bumps and stuff, it's often better to just sand them off and either completely forget they were there or replace them with a bit of plastic or something. Blend all that out there now. Keep feeling it. If it starts to feel warm, stop. Okay, there we go. That's all lovely. So we can come over now with a finer stick and just remove those sanding marks. There we go. Job done. So I'm happy with that. I'm going to get a skinny stick and just go in here. Just to straighten up that line there. A nice tidy fit on that. And now we can move down to the rear section. So again, 220 stick, just go across the top. Just sand and blend, sand and blend. We can see where it's still shiny, it's low, so we need to put some more in there. Don't just keep sanding, you'll end up with a flat bottom, and then you need to be careful not to sand away on these guns on the tail. As you can see, we need some more in there as well. I must check my references. I'm not sure what they're trying to portray here with this square lump. We'll have a look. And if it doesn't exist, then we'll get rid of it. In fact, I might fill that whole door in and then rescribe everything. Or half of it anyway. So I'm going to put some more Mr. Surfacer down here. Oh, we got another couple of divots I've just noticed. There's one there and one there. Look, you can see the shiny bit. So we got a lot more areas to put Mr. Surfacer in. So we'll do that, we'll get that sanded out, and then we'll start looking at these gaps that we're going to have to work on and get them sorted. So I'll see you in a few seconds for you. It's going to be quite a few hours for me. Right, quite a few hours later, as I said. So here you can see the fuselage. We've got the seams pretty much dealt with now, and under the front here we're all pretty much done. A couple of little indentations in there to take care of, and then the seams here inside the gear bays. It's nice to get these sorted so you haven't got like a step there. It makes it look one continuous line like that one is there. So you know, just makes it look a little bit nicer. I think these little pins in here can be removed. I think they're there to support the gear doors if you have them in the closed position, but I'll leave them there just in case. Along here I've put some Mr. Surfacer. Anywhere there's a straight edge, what I've done, I've gone on over with a biro and just drawn a squiggly line across the top, and then with a hard stick gone along the top gently, and then I can see the low and high spots. And there's just, you know, slight low spot here, there's one here I think. So just basically gone over the whole thing now with a brush full of Mr. Surfacer on a bigger brush, and then just brush that out. We'll let that dry, go solid now for a couple of hours, and then we'll sand that back, go over with the biro again, and then And if you are wondering, the only thing is, the biro does, if you rub over the top of it with a biro, what that does, it gives you a line, and then when you gently sand, if that line is still there, or you've got like this area here is there's no line, this area here there's no line, that means that is a low spot. So that's why I do that. Using a biro, because a pencil is very difficult to see underneath this LED light from certain angles, and obviously a magic marker, if you've got any there, it'll just keep coming through your paint, as I think I've mentioned before. So yeah, so that's that done, and then we've, like I say, we've gone across there the same. So get it all looking nice, and then once that's done, we'll get some work done on these Bombay doors. In fact, what I might do is do this now. What my intention is here is to use some sprue goo. Now, I've done a whole thing about sprue goo, so if you look back through the videos, you'll see that. I've got some stringing from the lid there. Get rid of that. So what I'm going to do is just brush this into this joint. And what this will do, it'll not only fill the joint, but it'll also weld it. And what will happen is these horrible play toy type hinges will, the sprue goo will sink into the areas around these hinges, so it'll leave a witness of them, but it's also going to bond it all shut as well. There we go. Funny old day today here in Gloucester. It's there's no wind as such, but you know, I woke up this morning and it was absolutely pouring down. And then half an hour ago was bright blue sky, and I've just looked out the window now and it's black again. So obviously we're in for a bit of an unsettled day. But apparently we've got some drier weather coming, so get stuck back into the Land Rover again. At the moment I'm sort of fighting between rain and everything, and wind and God knows what. And the Raptor normally lives in the garden, but of course with all the rain and everything, I'm worried that it's going to destroy the lawn, so don't like leaving that out on the road at night. There we go. As you can see, you can't really put too much on, but you do want to try and keep it fairly even. Then when it sinks back on those hinges, it'll kind of sink back evenly. And then what we can do then is go over with some Mr. Surfacer and then come back with a cotton bud and remove the excess. What we're after is just having a sort of witness of these hinges rather than great gaping holes like they are now. So that's that sorted nearly. Then we're going to rescribe the doors once all this has gone dry. So you'll see a bit of scribing. And then we've got to replace all our raised panel lines along the top, which is going to take an age. So there we go. Don't worry about all these strings and everything, they don't matter. So that's that done. Now in this centre area here we can see that it's all sort of bendy and floppy. I don't know if you can see that on the camera, but it all moves because they're not actually glued together. So I'm going to get my box of scrap plastic card here, then we can pull out some just pieces of scrap, push it down into the gap, push it along, and you can see that'll go back to there. Right, so what we'll do is we'll cut a piece of that. And just slide that in up to there. And then I'm going to take my extra thin. Brush that into that joint. Brush some in there so this is all nice and firmly glued together. There we go. I'm going to get a piece of plastic card, which is, we'll use 2 pieces of this one. So I should be able to slide that one in there up to that one. And then slightly overlap with that one. Get some extra thin in there. Don't be frightened to put too much in. You get a nice gooey mess going on. And I'm going to find something which is slightly thicker. There we go, there's some 10th thigh there. So I'm going to cut myself. Look at that, it's the perfect length. That piece there will wedge in here. And then another piece. I'm just going to shorten that slightly. Got it all stuck on the sprue glue. Got sprue glue on my new mat, which is inevitable. That doesn't want to go in there, so maybe a piece of the... No, it looks like the 10th thigh was the perfect size, so we'll just come in. With the Tamiya extra thin. And if you enjoy all this plastic card and filler and God knows what, I will very shortly be starting a build of a Mach 2 VC10 fuel tanker. I'll be doing a review of the kit here, so you can all see it, but the actual build is going to be exclusive, at least initially exclusive to Patreon, so or Patreon and PayPal members. On that note, it's easier for me to put it up for Patreon than it is for PayPal, so but there we go. So yeah, if you enjoy doing this sort of plastic card and cutting things about and making resin bits and everything, then that's going to be exclusive to the Patreon guys. So and ladies, should I say. So there we are. I'm just going to put another load of Tamiya extra thin on here. Just to make sure that's nicely welded in. Some over here as well, which is what we did before when we put the doors in. Just to make sure everything is welded and solid. And then we can sand all that out, blend it all in. As I say, go around with our sprue. You can see I've got some holes in the sprue glue there which you want to fill. So there's a couple of holes there, just fill them in. Bit of a deep one there, so we just put some more in there. There we go. So that'll go in there and fill it and weld it and everything else. So there we go. We can leave that for now to dry, and well, that's going to have a good few hours, and this along the spine as well. So there we go. We've got Hairy B52 now. Hairy Buff. See you later. Okay, 24 hours later now, and here we are. The top of the fuselage is all dry. That's the Mr. Surfacer on there, and then we've got the underneath here where I fitted the plastic card into the bomb bay and everything. So I'm just going to trim that plastic card away and literally with a knife just cut across it. Try not to sort of just oof it, because you'll likely pull it out. If you notice, I'm kind of slicing it off rather than just like that. Then we're going to take a fairly coarse sanding stick. Now, you may not believe this, but I've actually opened a new pack. So I've got some new zebra sticks here. That's the 400. Yeah, we'll use that one. So we've got the 400 grit. I'm just going to lightly sand over this seam. And as you can see there, where it's only glue, it's pretty much disappeared. And there we go, the plastic card is blending. And it looks like we're going to need to put some Mr. Surfacer in there because we've got a bit of mismatch in the middle. I don't just want to keep sanding because I might end up with a kind of, you know, a curved up belly. And we don't really want a curved up belly, do we guys? That's not good. Now for this plastic I'm going to use a coarser stick. I'm going to use this 220. I'm staying away from these raised panel lines. All these panel lines around here are actually engraved. So I'm just going to break down this sprue goo. The thing is with sprue goo, if you use too fine a stick, if you sand it too much and it's still a little bit soft, like this will be after 24 hours, I find it does take a long time to actually cure. You know, you can sand it and play with it, but to actually cure and go hard, I find it takes, you know, 3 or 4 days. Obviously that depends on how thick it is. But I'm just want to break this down. And what I was saying was, if you use too fine a stick, you sort of generate heat, and then it kind of sets it going again. So there we go. So that's that. Just broken down, and you can see now what we've done is we've filled in those great huge slots where we had the toy-like hinges, and now we've just got like a, you know, it's a small indentation. So we can go over that then with Mr. Surfacer, and then go over afterwards with the alcohol and clean all that out. But yeah, looking good. And then on this other side, I'm just going to come along and take away this sprue goo. And just blend everything in. There we go. We can see where the plastic's shiny. You can see that it's low, so we just go over it again. And then I'm going to come in with this 400 grit. Okay, and then if we want to, we can come along with like a, this is a 800 grit sponge, I think, 800 grit or 600 grit, 600 grit, and just go over where we've just been sanding, just to remove some of the sanding marks, like so. And there we are. So we've got closed up bomb doors, or closed up bomb bay doors should I say. There we are. And the same as the top, if I come along with the stick like that, we should be able to see where we're high and low. Yeah, we need some Mr. Surfacer in there, I think. Rather than sand that out, I'm just going to blend that in with some Mr. Surfacer or filler or something. There we are. So there we go, that's the bottom all smooth. So I'm going to add some Mr. Surfacer in there. I'll do that off camera, and then we'll come back and we'll have a look at the top. Okay, so I've got the base all done now. They're on the Bombay. That's all painted with Mr. Surfacer, so that can be left to dry. It's going to need another application on there, I think. So basically now this upper fuselage, we're going to sand this and get it all perfect, ready for giving it a coat of primer, just to have a look at it, and then we'll sand it again and replace all the all the panel lines. Now something I am tempted to do, we have a walkway that goes along here, and there's going to be 2 black stripes going all the way down, and it breaks and then it starts again down here. Now there were moulded on lines that showed where it was. I've got another kit so I can measure that and replace them as per the lines, so I'm not really worried about that. Or what you could do is, if you've only got the one model, is just measure up, or I'll tell you the measurements when I do it in a minute. So what I'm going to do now is put on what's called a guide coat. Now some of you may well have seen like a van or a car being home repaired, and what you'll see, there's sometimes going around, they'll have a panel down the side and it will be covered in grey primer, and it'll have a very light spattery coat of paint over it, and that is what's called a guide coat. I know some people, I've been asked quite a few times by people, what is that? And basically it's a guide coat. So you basically just, once your primer is on and you think everything is done, before your final sanding and shaping, you just put this guide coat on, and it's a very, very light coat of paint, dark or light, whatever you want to use. If you've got a dark primer, you can use a light colour. If you've got a light primer, you can use a dark colour. Here I'm going to use a darker colour. And what you do is just spray it on very lightly, and then when you sand, it will show you the high spots. So, or the low spots, should I say. If you've got a large flat panel like this, okay, it's all painted light grey primer, you put a guide coat on it, which is just basically a thin spattery coat of paint over the top. Then when you sand it, if you've got an area here which has still got the guide coat, then you know that that is low, so you can build that up. So that's what we're going to do here, because I've got a feeling we've got a low area around here, which if it's feathered out it won't really show, but if it's one area then it will show. So what I've got here is some Tamiya XF63 German Grey, only using this colour because I had some pre-mixed. So what I'm going to do, you can see I've masked off the gunner area and the cockpit area at the front, and I'm just going to literally just very lightly go over this just to get some colour on it. Okay, and this is literally a very, very thin coat of paint. I wouldn't suggest using enamels for this, or even Vallejo, or even Mr. Colour. You're probably better off with Tamiya, because the reason being is it dries really quickly. If you use enamels, you'll be waiting for 3 or 4 days before you can rub it down. And if you use Mr. Colour, they tend to take quite a while to dry as well. So you really want to be using Tamiya. Just cover the whole area like so. There we go. So this is just a very, very thin coat of grey paint on here. So we will see, it's all gone now. When we rub it down, we will see if we've got any low spots. So that's basically the idea there. So let me get the airbrush cleaned out and then I'll be back. Right, so that's all dried now. If you're noticing a slight change in the quality, I just noticed that the camera had reset itself to 1080, so I've now put it back to 720. Reason being is it takes about 3 times longer to upload at 1080 than it does at 720. So these hour-long videos would take something like 2.5–3 hours to upload, at which point my computer is rendered pretty much useless. So that's why I don't like doing that. So we've got the guide coat on here. So I'm going to take this stick, which is fairly worn, pretty much knackered, 400 grit, and just gently go over, very, very gently, not putting any pressure on. And we will see the high spots and the low spots and everything. And because I put this extra layer of Mr. Surfacer on, we're seeing this edge. So what we want to see is just total area of grey plastic or Mr. Surfacer. We don't want to see any of this grey paint. So that stick is absolutely shot. So I'm going to take a... what have we got here? I don't like using new sticks on paint because it tends to clog them up. So this one's a... nope, that one's no good. Here's a worn out 220. So we'll just gently go over the Mr. Surfacer here just to clean this up. As you can see by the way I'm holding the stick, there's no pressure. Just literally letting it touch rubbing it over very gently. And what we should be seeing is feathering out the paint across the edges. And I'm thinking what I should have done is rubbed down the Mr. Surfacer first and then done the guide coat. So I think that's what I'm going to have to do, is redo the guide coat again. You can see how it's coming out there. Okay, so we see we've got a low spot here, we've got a low spot there where that indentation was, where that sink mark was, should I say. And just go along the whole fuselage doing the same. And this area here is where I think we've got an issue. I think we could have various bits and pieces of low areas and stuff going on there. Hopefully from doing this you get the idea of what I'm saying. You can see here, you see I'm standing across here and there's a definite low spot there. There's another one there, look. You need to make sure when you do this, you need to make sure that you're not actually, make sure that that's not a high spot. Because if that's a big lump that you're not sanding down, it will look like it's got a low spot next to it, when it's actually the high spot you need to be taking care of, not the low spot. So I'm just going to go along here with this hard, flat, straight stick. Let's see what we get. And as you can see, we've got a low spot there, low here, low here. So as I suspected, that we've got some variation going on here, so that's going to need another application and then more sanding, which I'm not going to subject you to. I am going to call it a day for this video, because you've probably had enough of watching me stroke my piece of plastic with my sticks. So just take the sanding marks out with this 800 grit. So I don't think I finished saying what I was going to say. What I'm tempted to do is, where this walkway goes, I'm tempted to put the panel lines up to the edge of the walkway, so it doesn't actually go all the way over the top. But then I guess that would look a bit silly, wouldn't it? Okay, so there we go. So we've got low there, low there, low there, low there. Okay, so I'm going to put some more Mr. Surfacer in there and then sand it out again, and then we'll go over with the guide coat and sand again. So thanks for watching this one, guys. This has been part 21. I know there hasn't been a hell of a lot in it, but there has been quite a bit in it if you actually sort of sit down and think about what we've covered. So we've covered filling, sanding, low spots. We've shown the benefits of the care taken at the beginning, where we spent ages gluing the fuselage halves together, making sure we didn't have a step. So yeah, all in all, we've done a lot in this video, and I'm going to take a 600 grit sponge now and go over this and just give that a finish off. And then we might put a guide coat on there as well, but I might not bother because it is on the underside, and I don't think this model's going to be picked up very much, to be honest. So there we go, guys. Just sand out those bits of extra Mr. Surfacer I put in there, and there we are, good to go. So I'll carry on Mr. Surfacer, and I'll see you all for part 22, where we'll have this guide coat down and probably all done, ready for some primer. Thanks for watching, guys. See you later.